Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking all about solo trips to Walt Disney World and why I think you should go on one. And I'm so glad that you're here. So if you've been watching the vlogs, you know I just got back from a fantastic 4-night stay at Walt Disney World. I was all by myself. It was a fabulous solo trip and I had the best time. A lot of you have had questions for me about solo travel to Disney World. Now keep in mind, I do solo travel all over the world. I've been to Europe by myself several times, all over the United States of course. I like traveling alone and I realize at the outset of this video that not everybody is like that. Some of you have a lot of fears surrounding it, or you just don't prefer it. And let me just say that is a-okay. But for those of you that do enjoy traveling by yourselves, I want to give kind of my thoughts and a few tips and tricks to kind of make it a little bit easier for you when you're traveling alone. And I'm super clever today. So I have broken it down into things that all, you have to start things with the same letter. If you're gonna, make your point. It's like a presentation skill 101. It's Toastmasters here at Jen Lefforge. Everything has an F. So we're gonna talk about flexibility. We're gonna talk about freedom. We're gonna talk about food. We're gonna talk about friendly to your wallet. And we're gonna talk about fast passes. So that'll be fun, right? I hope so. The number one thing that is a huge benefit of traveling by yourself to Disney is flexibility. If you are like me and you have raised your kids, or if you're usually traveling with a large family, there is just a lot you have to coordinate with other people and they tend to have opinions about what they do and do not want to do. When you travel by yourself, you have the flexibility to do exactly what you want to do when you want to do it. If you want to change plans at the last minute, let's say as I did, you were going to go to Magic Kingdom and instead you decide to go to Animal Kingdom, you can change that plan on the fly. I decided that morning as I was getting ready that I was going to go to Animal Kingdom instead. You can shift gears in the middle of the day. You can have a reservation somewhere and switch it to somewhere else. And it isn't that you can't do that with other people, but they may have really looked forward to that first thing that you were going to do. And so you definitely need to get a little bit more input from them before you go, veering off in another direction. But the flexibility, as selfish as it may seem to some, to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, and the ability to change your mind and just roll with the punches, that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And as a mom who has raised 3 kids, I gotta tell you, I keep thinking I've done several of these solo trips now that, I'm gonna get tired of that. I don't. I love the flexibility and I love that I am the one in the driver's seat and there's no one else for me to consult if I want to change plans or even just in my plans in general. I'm the boss and I'm the one who gets to decide. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So the second thing that I love is that you have freedom. And this sort of goes along with flexibility, but it also goes to you've got the freedom to do as much or as little as you want. It is your vacation. So maybe you wake up on the day where you plan to go and do rope drop to fireworks, but you're like, I just want to lay by the pool. You have the freedom to make that decision. And you have the freedom to make the vacation look like whatever you want it to look like. So if you are someone who is really, if you're a people pleaser, if you're someone who's really used to having to do what everybody else wants, again, you have the freedom to call your own shots, the freedom to go to the restaurants you want to go to, the freedom to go to the parks that you want to go to, and furthermore, not to do things you don't want to do. I think all of us that have traveled with our kids, maybe we have things that we want to do that we don't do because of our kids, or things that we don't like to do that we do because of our kids. I would say for me, those are things like, the shows in Epcot, the Philharmonic, is it the Philharmonic, the Main Street Philharmonic, the band. I love hearing the band. I love listening to the Dapper Dans. I have the freedom to stand there and watch the entire Dapper Dan show and nobody is rushing me. No one is telling me to hurry up. I can watch, the trolley car people do their song and dance and just to my heart's content. I have the freedom to do the things that I want to do. And I think that's a really great reason to do a solo trip to Walt Disney World. The third thing we're going to talk about is food. Now, I am the only vegetarian in my family, so this really plays in, and I'm also not a very big eater. So I love that I can eat what I want when I want, and I don't have to go to a restaurant that everyone else goes to if I look at the menu and it doesn't have something that I would want to eat, because guess what? I'm the only one eating. Also, I don't need to eat quite as often when I'm not with my kids. I just don't. I just don't have that big of an appetite, so I can eat at odd times. I can skip breakfast and I can have lunch at 3 and I can have a snack at 6 or whatever I want that to look like. And when I'm choosing where I'm going to eat, I'm basing it purely on what it is that I feel like. I can go get exactly the snacks that I want. And again, this kind of ties into the flexibility and the freedom. But especially if you're someone who has a little bit of a different diet, I can tell you right now, my kids would not have wanted to go to Harambe Market, where I had one of the best vegetarian quick service meals I've ever had on property. And yes, my vegetarian friends, I will be doing a separate video just on vegetarian Disney, so be watching for that. But there's just things that I would not have the opportunity to try, because you're going to want to go to a restaurant where everybody can get something good to eat. But if you're traveling by yourself, you can just get the food that you want. Maybe you don't even want to do meals. Maybe you're a person who just wants to snack all day. You know what? It's your trip. Go ahead. You can do whatever you want. That's awesome, right? So the next thing that kind of didn't work, but I made it work with an F, it is friendly to your wallet. Obviously, one person dining is going to be cheaper than 2. Obviously, one person getting coffee at Starbucks is going to be cheaper than 2 or 3 or 5. Also in my case, because I normally travel with a family of 5, it enables me to stay in resorts that we may not be able to fit in, right? We're Disney Vacation Club members, but as the boys have gotten older, we would never dream of staying in one hotel room. I was able to get an amazing annual pass holder discount at Coronado Springs, which now that all the renovations are done or almost done, I don't think that's ever going to happen again. But I got a rate of $139 as an annual pass holder rate, which is crazy. But you know, it was just me staying in the room. So really, I kept checking the website for Disney, and I was happy with staying wherever I could find it the cheapest. So that gave me a lot more flexibility than if I was traveling with a big group. I may not feel like I had the ability to just stay wherever. In this case, Coronado Springs would not have been my first choice, but I loved it. I did a full review and a room tour, so I'll put some links for you guys so you can go and find them. I'll put them down in the show notes as well. So definitely it is a wallet friendly trip. And you know, I did this entire trip for less than $500. Now, granted, I did have a Disney Rewards Visa card and I did have a couple of gift cards in my wallet, but to be able to go and do a trip like this for less than $500, oh, and I had an annual pass, so that played into it a lot. But you know, obviously, if it had been more than one person, I never would have been able to get by that cheaply. So a solo trip is definitely friendlier to your wallet. And then the last thing is fast passes. So if you guys know me, you know that I am big on as soon as one fast pass, like literally once I have scanned my magic band to the ride I'm going on, I am looking on my Disney experience to either move up the fast pass plans I've already made or to schedule a new one if I've already made my fast pass plans for the day. At Magic Kingdom, this enabled me to ride 10 attractions using a fast pass in one day, which yeah, that'll blow your mind, right? So when you're only a party of 1, those fast passes crop up quite a bit. You would be shocked. I was able to get Seven Dwarfs Mine Train on the same day. And actually one of the days I was there, I was back at the hotel trying to decide what I was going to do that night. And a Slinky Dog Fast Pass came up. A Flight of Passage Fast Pass came up while I was there. So when you're only one person, you have a much higher chance of those fast passes coming available to you really conveniently and quickly. And again, going back to the flexibility and freedom, if you're with your family, especially if you're with kids, you know, if all of a sudden you're like, hey, we're not going to ride Space Mountain now, we're going to ride Splash, or we're going to ride Pirates or whatever, because that's the fast pass I can get right now, they may not be quite as amiable to that. Whereas if you're by yourself, you're like, well, I don't care if I change my plans at the last minute. That's totally fine. So not only are you able to get better fast passes, but then all of those other things that you may want to fill in between big attractions that maybe, and this is going back to the freedom piece, your family may not want to do as much as you do. Things like Carousel of Progress, and the Tiki Room, and the People Mover 3 times. Yes, I rode the People Mover 3 times. I like the People Mover, what can I say? It just gives you that ability to ride the attractions in a completely different way as well, and I think that that makes for a super fun trip and something that everybody should do at least once. Now, I know a lot of you think, this seems a little nutty. Like, what kind of a grown woman would go to Disney by herself? And all I have to say to that is a fun one. I have loved Disney since I was a very little girl. And the one thing that used to drive me crazy when I was little are the things that I've mentioned here. I wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And when I was traveling first with my parents and then with my husband and now with my children. And that's as it should be when you're with a group of people. You have to do what everybody wants. But I always had this feeling when we left the parks. When I was young, it was Disneyland Park, and as we started taking the boys to Disney World, I just didn't get enough time to do this. Well, when you do a solo trip, you can make the time to do those things. If you want to spend all day in Adventureland, you spend all day in Adventureland. You go in every shop, you eat at every place you want to eat, and you can kind of explore Disney, especially if you're a big Disney fan, on a completely different level. The one thing that people will tell me, and I actually had a conversation with a woman while I was down there, we were sitting at Animal Kingdom looking out on the water, she was waiting for her kids to get done with the ride. She said, "Don't you feel odd traveling by yourself?" And we were talking about my other travels as well. And I said, no, not at all. I love that I can be independent. I love that I can go out and do what I want. And I love that I can be my own best friend and keep myself company. And you can have great conversations with people on buses and waiting for rides, just like you always do. And the one thing I said, I posted a picture of myself on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I'll insert the picture right here because it's really hilarious. And I posted on Twitter and I said, sometimes people think I'm odd or they'll stare at me because I'm by myself. I think they're really just jealous. Because there is something about doing a trip like this on your own terms, your own way, eating the food you want to eat, riding the things you want to ride, and enjoying every second of it. So what questions do you have about solo travel at Disney? Put those in the comments below. I'm so glad you were here today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.